Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it has been a few weeks since I posted a video, but I think you can understand that I had a Kickstarter running and I needed to place all of my energy and focus into that project. So I did have to step away from videos for YouTube for a few weeks. But I'm back, I'm here, and we are going to talk about my February wrap up. In February, I had a few things going. Like I mentioned, my Folkloric Waters Tarot ran through all of February and just wrapped up at the very start of March. Thank you to everyone who contributed and backed the project or showed your support in any way of like sharing and commenting and liking any of my social media posts, anything like that. It literally takes every single person to make this happen, and I am just really grateful that we were able to do that. So now that I got that off my plate a little bit, I do still have some work to do, but I can place some energy in other areas now. I did want to talk about some of my monthly things that we go over. So, first, let's get into my tarot journaling practice and the selected deck. For February, I worked with the Abaddon Keys and I really enjoyed this deck. The keywords really complement the imagery very well, and then the colored borders are an element, which is an excellent additional layer to apply to the card's message. And I think they're selected very well and fit in seamlessly, so it doesn't feel burdensome or cumbersome to apply that. I found that the guidebook was really approachable in its writing, and the fact that this is based in the Greek pantheon, if I am recalling that correctly, it's not necessarily needed to apply to this. Now, that's not something that I study or that I work with, but I really enjoyed the collage work in this along with the keywords. That when I found that the guidebook was so easy to get into, I thought, wow, this is a really strong deck. And it's one I really enjoyed working with in my journal this month. Unlike January, where the deck and the style of practice I chose to move forward for with that month did not work for me at all. But this one, I made sure to go back to something that I really enjoy, and that's just pulling an oracle card, looking at the artwork, thinking on the keyword, and seeing what comes to me. And then once I journal my thoughts down, which are like extremely brief. If you've been around, you know my journal is like 3 sentences long. I read the guidebook. I like to see how close I got or didn't. And it's always a fun little game to see if I'm in the same sort of like vein or intention that the creators were. So, why don't we look at my journal a little bit? So I use a Happy Planner classic skinny size, and it's an outdated planner that I just white out the days, and I use the month overview to write down my card pulls. And then each day I just really spend like 2 or 3 minutes and I jot down some ideas or whatever it is I'm focusing on or doing. And that's it. So I pre-decorate all the spreads the month before, and that helps it keep it very approachable for when it's time to actually journal and like pull a card, that I'm not fussing and worrying about the stickers and everything else, right? The only thing I keep doing, I keep tripping myself up on, is that my highlighter color that I write the card titles in, I keep forgetting to change out the color week to week. And I've been meaning to match it to like the decoration. I get stuck with the marker on my desk and then I just keep grabbing it and using it instead of getting a new one. So I would have loved to have a more fun color than tan for this very vibrant spread, but you know, it is what it is. So I then also write in my weekly oracle pulls and my Animal Gnosis animal. And I label my decks with my label maker in here so I can keep track of what it is I used. So this is a really enjoyable practice to me. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's approachable, it's easy. You can get as worked up over the decorations or not. I know I say this in most of the monthly videos, But I think it's really a game changer practice if you're interested in journaling, but all the reasons why you aren't. Get a super clearance, outdated planner, white out the old dates, and just write in there. You only have a certain amount of space. You can't go, I mean, you can go longer, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's not this huge blank white spread that you're approaching like every day. Because for me, that feels really unrealistic. I get too caught up in, the making of it. So what I found with this deck is that the messages just came really simple to me. They felt natural to write about. What I did with this one specifically was read the guidebook and then just kind of like summarize some highlights of what the entry said. Versus other times, I might pull a card, journal on it, and then read the guidebook, which I had mentioned before, which is what I'm doing in March because that's kind of like my usual way. But I find that if you have a deck that you really want to get to know in terms of like engaging with the guidebook, but not necessarily engaging with the guidebook in the middle of a reading, you don't want to stop the flow of your spread, of your reading, and like reference the guidebook constantly. I find picking those kinds of decks where you do want to get into the guidebook, that choosing to practice it in a journal format really helps you chip away and get to know the deck's guidebook or the artwork or whatever aspect it is about the deck that you want to feel more familiar with. So it almost feels like a cheat code in a way where you're like, oh, I am going to engage with the guidebook and the deck in this way, but it's like this very one purpose, one off way that referencing the book is incorporated into that practice. So I find that super helpful. And I overall just really enjoyed working this deck. For the most part, I really love all of the collages. Of course, some things aren't my style, but that's the beauty of artwork, right? Like, it doesn't need to be 100% your style for you to appreciate and enjoy. So that was the journaling practice this month. And I think I am going to use the Witch's Shadow Work Oracle for my weekly polls again. I do really enjoy most of the card titles in that deck, and of course, I really enjoy the artwork, which was the number one reason why I got it. And I quickly skim the guidebook entries, but I really don't think it's necessary. So I think I will be using that again for March. I did start with some daily polls out of the Wild Chorus Oracle. However, once I got like really deep into my Kickstarter work in February, I kind of let that go to the wayside. So daily polls probably only happen for like the first week of February. I really love and enjoy this journaling tarot practice. Now, there was another practice that I participated in February, which is super fun. So let's look at that next. Okay, before we get too in the weeds with this workbook I did through February, and because it ties into the creator, of course, I always show my Animal Gnosis cards for the month in these wrap up videos. This workbook was from the same creator, Animals and Arcana. And so I figured I would just show these together really quick. The animal was the Dunnock. I think that's how you say it. It's a little sparrow like bird, and I believe it is native to the UK. So we don't have them here in the States, but I did pull some cards that I felt represented the energy and a little bit of the bird itself. So I really love this oracle card from the Thistledown Oracle, and it has this sparrow bird on the ground, which a Dunnock is a on the ground kind of bird. And I love the idea of this feather and the bird with the keyword looking up. Tegan writes a really beautiful monthly message for each animal of the month. So I pulled these cards based on her write up, based on her gnosis. So I felt like it really fits the energy that she was placing for that month with the bird. So then we have the protection card from the Perfect Scheme deck. And I just thought the wings with a little bit of this like ground shrub leaf and this almost like mossy, feathery like shawl on the character also played really well into the bird's energy. And then from the Tree Whisperers Oracle, I felt like the story card also fit into Tegan's write up really beautifully. So these were my three altar cards, and this was a bit of an unusual selection for me this month. So far, I have had cards of the animal, but because I didn't this month, it really pushed me to experiment and explore other altar cards to represent the animal's like energy and story. So this was like a fun out of the box selection for me, which leads me perfectly into Tegan's workbook. So for the month of February, Tegan had this amazing deck study. She calls it a monthly devotional, which I think is a great way to frame this because it's not your traditional deck study. Now, I printed off like the printer friendly version. She has a very beautiful full color imagery version as well that you could easily do for digital journaling or print it out and write on it. I printed out every week and wrote in my entries. I even kind of did like some notes and some like check offs and jotted stuff down in the prompts section. I selected the deck, The Drowning World, for this month of the workbook. This was a deck I got for Christmas. I felt super excited about the imagery and I wanted to get to know it more. So I thought selecting this deck was the perfect entry point for the workbook. Now, the workbook was released week by week through February. So each week there was a new set of prompts and exercises. And there's certainly more prompts and exercises than what's needed to do every week. It's very choose your own adventure. It's slow paced, it's self paced. I mean, obviously, you could do as quick as you want or as slow as you want, but it's really like a way to slow down with a deck, to get to know a deck on more of like a relationship level in terms of this isn't a we're going card by card for the meanings. These are very creative prompts. I haven't seen deck studies or even others approaching tarot in the way that this workbook did. It is definitely a very unique offering and one that helped me see this deck in a different light because for my first week in the workbook, I, of course, wanted to reference the guidebook to this to get a better understanding and intention of the card meanings. And it's funny enough that the King of Wands here popped up because that was the first card pull, my first guidebook entry that I read, and I was absolutely stumped. I really hit a wall with the way the writing is focused for each card. So thanks to Tegan's workbook, which just kind of happened to work out so freaking well for this deck, that these prompts and these exercises opened up my interpretation and my approach to this deck. I really started to form my own connections to the artwork. A lot of the times in the prompts, I just threw the tarot meanings to the side and focused on the exercises, the prompts, and the imagery of the cards. There were so many times where I was pulling cards and this deck almost felt movie like, laying card out by card out by card out. I was seeing like scenes of a movie. There's so much imagery of life and abundance, but then the flip side of like the darkness and loss of life and death and that sort of feeling and imagery, that it had this juxtaposition of like, I don't know, almost just made me think of being more grateful for what you have, of using the resources that are available to you in your immediate space, of being aware of the needs of self and others. And I don't know, it just really gave me this sort of rural vibe. And it might be because of like all the plants and vegetation that are used so heavily in this deck, the antique tools and objects definitely have a feel of that. And I loved applying that new connection to me in this. It was a really great experience. It was a fun duality of like working in this guidebook plus doing my tarot journal because they felt like I was getting a really well rounded practice in February where I'm like getting all this like experimental out of the box workings with the drowning world and then very like traditional readings and interpretations and practice in my tarot journal. So this was cool. I'll just do a quick little flip here. I don't want to give obviously it all away, but you can see all my writing. There's so many spreads really different questions and activities to try. I think you would discover something you never have before in this. Tegan does have this available in her shop, so I will make sure to link that in the description box below. And if this is something that piques your interest, I highly recommend giving this a go. The best thing about it is that this is absolutely reusable. You may come back to this months down the road and pick a totally different combination of exercises to go through with a different deck, and you would get something new out of it each time. It's that pick and choose, and it's totally different. It's a very unique offering in this space. So I highly encourage you to check this out, read up what Tegan wrote about it, and I think you'll get a lot out of this, especially if you're someone that wants to be more creative in their readings, be a little looser, if you feel like you're stuck in your same old practice and you're looking for new approaches, definitely give this a try. So let's check out the most fun part of this whole video, and that's my new decks for February. It was a quiet February for bringing decks in, but it comes and goes. So let's check these out one by one. Okay, the Wild Eden Tarot. We probably won't flip through too much of this. If you know, you know. There's a lot of bodies, and I don't want YouTube to get mad, but let's just crack it open real quick. So I had this deck on my radar. I believe it came out the same time that the deck that I had, and I sent back I keep wanting to call it the New Moon Tarot. It's the one with the witch, and each suit has the seasons and like wheel of a year, but the majors artwork doesn't really match the artwork in the minors. So I had bought that deck instead of this one when they released. Because I didn't connect with the one I did buy, I just kind of set this one off to the side because at first glance I thought, oh my gosh, this one has the same issue with the minors all looking the same. But once I saw this floating around Instagram, I said, oh my gosh, some of these cards are absolutely to die for. And I need to give this another look. Had to flip through some bodies, but I thought, oh, this is stunning. Like I need this. And it's very tropical in theme, right? Like in environment and location and in the like animals and plant used. And I think that's great because I feel like that is a underrepresented environment in deck world art. I think the compositions are really dynamic. The color is bold, is playful, engaging. Of course, I love all of the animals, and it's a different deck for me. So you can see that it's still in order. I had mentioned in my last wrap up video, I think I've been keeping my newly brought decks in unused for the entire month. But I think it's a really cool practice of patience, and it's a way to enjoy the decks that you currently are using with having some restraint with the new ones that come in, right? Because, you know, when the new one comes in, you're just so excited and everything gets pushed to the wayside and you're focusing on this new one, which is totally okay. I do that too. But this new sort of implementation I have started actually has really helped me slow down with new decks in terms of like being like hot and heavy with them right away and then they sit on the shelf for a while. It's a slow incorporation, and I don't know, it's been working for me. I'm just trying to eyeball which ones I can show and not. So I'm excited to see what I can pair with this because I haven't even played with pairings. I haven't even, that's how strict I've been being. I'm like, they sit on my table, I'll crack them open, I'll flip through the cards, but then like that's it. There's no use beyond that. And yeah, it's been working. But this one will be interesting to pair because it has some unusual color palettes and like color combinations. And like I said, the environment is generally rather tropical. Although this one we have like wolves and pine trees, but which is most of my sort of environments for my decks. So this one will be cool to pair up. I'm really excited about it. Can we just look at my favorite card ever? This Judgment card is incredible. If there's any card that made me buy a deck, it would be this artwork for this deck. It gives me vibes of Paprika, the anime, if you're familiar with that. And something about that just sort of tickles me. So this was a new one. Next, let's check out Tarot from the World Behind the Veil. This is by the same creator that illustrated the Yokai Tarot and the Oracle of Chimeras. I did not know about this deck. I did see once I found out about it that it was on Kickstarter, and so I ordered this, and it took a while to get here, but oh my gosh, this might be my favorite one yet between the three. Should I just pull those out so we can look at them a bit too? Also, I was informed that this artist also has another deck coming out rather recently. I think it's Art Nouveau, Japanese Art Nouveau, something with those words in the title. I had no idea it was by the artist as well, so we'll see if I bring that one in too. But I do love these three so much. So, this new one here, Tarot from Behind the Veil. Each card is based on a figure in folklore from around the world. And I'm not even joking you. When I got the deck in, and I just kind of go like this through the guidebook, right? And I just crack it open. And the one I cracked open to was the Finnish folklore one. I said, oh my gosh, this couldn't have been any more aligned for me to get. So it's gorgeous. You can see it's a great combination of these two decks into this. I love the artist's style. It's soft, but has this darkness in the figures. So there's not like a lot of like high and deep contrast in the work. It is rather soft in tone, visual tone, but it works so well. It just builds a world that speaks to me and what I'm interested in and what I look for in artwork. What I love about artwork and decks and the fact of like having a deck collection is that I get to collect all these art styles that I wouldn't necessarily order a big art piece to hang on my wall in my house, right? But I can enjoy all these different art styles in card format that I still genuinely really love and enjoy, but isn't necessarily like my decor taste. Do you know what I mean? Or like your taste for what insert thing that's visual and creative and, you look for, okay? Oh, also let me show you the backs. I love these backs. I got the collector's edition, which is the bigger one. Here are the backs on these since we're just showing backs here. Yeah, this one I am super excited about working with though, and finding my pairings. I feel like pairings will be rather similar to what I pair with this just because tonally it's very close. Here's the Finnish folklore one. Of course, number 9, Hermit. 9 is my favorite number. Hermit is one of my favorite cards, not because of 9. 9 has just been my favorite number since 2nd grade. It was just one of those like meant to be things. So this was like a big highlight in my February for new deck. It's just one of those decks that makes me really excited. So let's just give this a couple more flips because I am rather tired. I'm a little low in energy and brain power, so I feel like I don't have my usual very analytical and like points to be made with the decks. We are just here to enjoy and to hear about my month. So thanks for hanging with me through this one. And I can't wait to get back to making more videos and forming discussions because I just love talking about art and design in the tarot world. Aren't these cool? Oh, the moon. She's holding the fox with the dog jumping down. Cute. I didn't catch that the first time I looked. Just really quick, because if you are interested, I can show you the guidebook a little bit. So you get what the figure is, and then a quick English translation. I haven't tried Google Translate on this to see how much it does or doesn't align, so to be determined. But overall, a great deck to add to the collection. And if you have that Japanese Art Nouveau one on your list to buy, do let me know in the comments because I really liked it, but then I also was like, do I need it? Because I have this one. And I feel like I connect more with kind of folklore figures and stories and themes than, but I don't know. I don't know. I need to see more cards of the Art Nouveau one. Like, is it just culturally Japanese imagery or, what's the story behind it? I love a story. So to be determined with that. But I'm like, I already have 3. Do I need the 4th? I mean, possibly. Do you collect artists or creators' decks regardless? Or do you pick and choose? I pick and choose. And like, that's fair to say about my own stuff too. So like you might like some of my decks and not other ones. That's totally fine. Speaking of Japanese, let's look at my new oracle. I got in this Japanese oracle deck from Amazon Japan, and I had this one on my list for a while. I just hadn't pulled the trigger on it yet. This one reminds me of that oracle deck from Hay House. I think it's like Sisterhood of the Seers or something. It's kind of like a very cutesy, almost like journal aesthetic watercolor illustration. And it reminds me of this a little bit, which I'm like kind of tempted to get because I think they'd look really awesome together. So, of course, everything is in Japanese. And I haven't decided if I am going to do something with the keywords. For the most part, my decks that are in other languages, I just leave. But because this one's so clear and clean to mod, I don't know. I might, but also I might not. Cause I kind of like to keep it how it is. You know, it's one of those things where you're like, don't I? And I pay so much for shipping that I don't necessarily want to not like it. But also, I was like, gosh, you could so cleanly cut this off, have an almost square card. You could stamp a keyword on there, washi tape, writing, sticker, whatever. Same with this. I thought, well, I could just keep them as is. I could white out here and then like stamp a keyword. Some of these titles are actually pretty long, like more like sentences. So I feel like if I were to do that, it would be slightly adjusting the original intent and putting my own keyword. But I really love the playful artwork. It goes with my other Japanese deck, the Perfect Scheme one, which that has a watercolor style to it. This one is definitely a lot more loose, but I love the layers to it. I love the cute stars that are about. There's a lot of nature in here, and it's just a really beautiful deck. It's soft, it's feel good, and I don't really have anything like it. You know, I definitely have things that are soft, I have things that are feel good. I don't necessarily have like an overly amount of like cutesy artwork though. So yeah, this will be one to get to know. There's the back, so you can see it almost feels like very under the sea, which perhaps I need to read the guidebook and figure out what this new gate means. Maybe it's like a portal and a portal into some underwater kind of fantasy here. So yeah, it's just a really nice one. But let me know what you think about the keywords and the titles here. I feel like this has such a open opportunity to do something with. But once again, I just might not because I don't want to mess with the cards. And you know when you start cutting the cards and they get a little fat because the like tight sealed edge is now broken and puffs a little bit. If you have that what's it called? The Sisterhood of the Seers or whatever. I'm curious about that one because it also feels very girly, and I'm not saying that in any kind of way. It's a quick way to describe something. So yeah, this will definitely be one that I report back on to see how it is going and how I end up using it. I just kind of had to have it, you know, because on Amazon Japan, things come and go on there. And I've been watching decks on there for probably like the last 5 years. And there's some that I was able to order like 4 or 5 years ago and now aren't available at all, or they're not shipping to the US anymore. So I didn't want this one to sit on the list for too long and then like be bummed when I couldn't get it anymore. Really quickly, we'll talk about the one book I finished in February. This is a part of the River of Shadows, which I talked about in January, and I just devoured this book. And this is book 2 in the series. It's based on Finnish mythology, the sort of the enemies to lovers trope, god of death, underworld vibe. You don't have to know or appreciate Finnish mythology to enjoy the book. I think it just adds a layer of charm to the characters because you're familiar with them, and it just gives some like entertaining storylines and ideas to apply to those characters in a book format, you know? This one I read through the first half or like 3/4 of it super quick. And then I paused because I was waiting for book 3 and 4 to arrive. And I did start book 3 in February, but this one I finished and I felt like the writing kind of petered out a little bit at the end. So I'm interested to see how book 3 goes. Now, 100%, I am not reading these or getting these books for some sort of elegant writing. This is pure entertainment for me. And River of Shadows was so entertaining. I finished it in 2 days, I think. This one I read through pretty quick. If I kind of take out my breaks of reading it, I'm sure I read it within a week, which is still really good for me. So if you are a fan of romantasy, it's not dark, it's entertaining. There are some spicy bits to it, but it doesn't dominate the story. It isn't over the top. Trust me, I would not be reading something that's like that. This is my first romantasy series, and I'm really enjoying it. It's just, I'm new to this world of books. So I'm like feel like I just like am slowly dipping my toes in the water, and it's a great form of entertainment. I feel like anything that we can get off the screens from, the better. Yeah, if you're into god of death sort of romance, like I said, enemies to lovers, and you're looking for an entertaining and quick read, I think this is a good series to dive into if anything I said sounded of interest to you. I will say this one had really amazing world building, that you got to interact with a lot of different characters, while this one places you in mostly the same environment and like scenario. So I think maybe that's what felt a little slower with this one. Like I said in my last video, if it has anything to do with Finnish mythology, folklore, I am going to give it a try. So at least at the end of the day, I am going to have this list of books and everything Finnish related that I can then recommend to people, because I know how difficult it is to track down Finnish mythology, Finnish folklore, Finnish tradition stuff. It is just like scattered out there in these bits and pieces. So one day, I feel like I'm going to have an amazing library to recommend. To wrap up the month, let's just talk about some fun journaling stuff I got in February, and then we'll say our goodbyes. So, you know that I like to use happy planners because the disc bound system really alleviates that sort of stress and pressure that comes from a bound notebook. I love to be able to insert and take out, and it almost feels like a collage process. So, I wanted to try a ring system. So I ended up finding really good deals on these two Filofaxes. So this one I haven't been able to dive into yet because Kickstarter. But when I get there, I am super excited. So this is the personal, and then this duck egg color is the pocket size. I figured I would dip my toe into the water and see what I think with their cheaper models. And then I also found them for a really good price. So I haven't done anything except this start of this cover page, which I just used like stickers and doodles and stuff, which is really fun. So my plan for these two books is I think I want to use them as a type of art journal, kind of junk journal, not really a commonplace, but basically like a catch-all that isn't my tarot journal. And I have found using the planner as a tarot journal actually really, really works for my brain and the way I operate. Because for my actual to dos and appointments and stuff like that, I use an oversized notepad that has days of the week, and I just write in each day, rip the page off at the end of the week, and it's done. So I'm not much of a planner in terms of using a real planner to write down my scheduling and stuff. I like to use it as a way to keep myself accountable and consistent in creating or whatever the thing I'm trying to accomplish. So I wanted to try out the two different sizes. I figured I'd like the personal size because I like the Happy Planner skinny. So I am definitely leaning towards this size. And my thought process is that I will just use the spreads of the week to do an art page, whatever that may be. Maybe it's just cut out words, maybe it's just colors, maybe it's just shapes, sticker, like whatever. But once a week, doing something creative in here. And then I'll have a full year of weekly journaling, art wise, right? And then same for this. I just thought it's a smaller size. It keeps it like really doable for me because I already have like so many different things going on that I can't dedicate all of this time and energy and like days and days and days of like completing one spread, which is what I ran into with my large happy planner that I was making into like an art journal slash whatever. I loved what I was making in there, but it was too much of a commitment. So at least size wise, I know I can do this in a day or do this in one sitting. Even if I start it, I can come back to it. There's just something about the larger size that stops me. And it's not that it stops me from doing it because I'm intimidated of the size, it's the literal time commitment. And for the way I collage, the way I create, the smaller sizes are easier to work with my style because I don't need like as large of pieces to have like really great focal points in the spreads. So for this year, for the rest of this year, I will be trying probably this one out. I wanted to just see about the pocket size here and then also the domino cover to see if I like it because visually I really love this like soft cover wrap around, but I'm not sure I love the finish of this material. It almost feels a little sticky, and I don't know if that will just get better over time. So we'll see. Verdict's out on this one, but this one I definitely instantly loved. I know I had watched some videos that people didn't like the texture on this one. I don't mind it. I definitely like it better than this. I love the color. I really like using these like vibrant poppy colors for my creative journals because it's all just for fun. Like it's not super serious and I'm not stuck to a certain aesthetic. It's just like my aesthetic for these sort of things is creative, is art. You know what I mean? So, anyways, that was kind of a long ramble on that, but I am excited to try these out. And also, about this sort of enclosed cover feels really intimate compared to the happy planners with just, a top and a bottom cover. I don't know, there's something that just feels maybe a little diary like, right? Just feels like little secrets in there. So I felt like that was cool to try. And then look at these amazing stickers and stuff I got. Of course, I had to just, indulge a little bit and I wanted to shop some shops that I wanted to support. And I'm really excited to stick these new stickers down. Look at these awesome tarot spread stickers I got from Earth and Omen. Very excited about using these. A super cute date stamp because I figured for my art spreads it would be nice to stamp the date down on that since I'm going to cover the actual calendar or like planner date pages and I would just like to be able to keep track that way. And then of course I had to get journal clamps. We'll see if I actually put these into practice, but I figured it's good just to have them to try and see how I feel about it. I have been training the journals like laying flat, so they'll lay flat when I have it open. This one I've had a lot longer. This one just came in the other day, and I've been able to make this one lay flat when it's opened. So that's great. And yeah, just some paper clips and a little folder. I was just supporting businesses on Etsy, which was fun. And look at this amazing stamp. I just thought this is like something that's like really versatile, so I wanted to give that a try. If you're a journal person, definitely let me know because I really love watching journal videos, hearing journal videos, especially as it ties into tarot. I really was and am considering maybe it's one journal, maybe it's two, I don't know, but I think it would be really fun to incorporate a practice where I pull a tarot card, oracle card, and allow that to inspire what I create. I just think that would be something really fun to incorporate for myself since I haven't really done that before and I'm always looking for new ways to incorporate my decks into my creative world and just my life in general. I feel like the more out of the box things we can do with decks, the better. I just think it keeps us loose, it keeps us open, it keeps us experimental and not remaining rigid in our ways of thinking and the ways of use. Because I think that kind of how we get stagnant and stuck. And I think that's how we start to form these barriers and these ways of gatekeeping and these other sort of snobby ideas of what tarot and oracle and all the other kind of decks are. I just think this is something, if it brings you fun, if it brings creativity into your life, if you use your imagination, if it brings play into your day, I think that's really that all that matters. Because I think a lot of people lose that sense of play and creativity as you get older, and it's something you have to practice. It's not always a natural feeling or idea or approach to everything for everyone. And I think pushing ourselves to incorporate those little bits is always really important. And like what I said before, if it takes you off the phone screen, I think that's a win. The phone is amazing, the internet is amazing, but there's the double edge to that as well, right? So I think we can do things off screen, come on screen to share, which is exactly why I'm here and why I enjoy making YouTube videos and watching other people's YouTube videos. I learn so much, I get so much inspiration, so many new ideas. Even if I don't always apply those, I still find it fascinating to think about and to watch other people do it. If that's reading a different type of book, if that's trying a different kind of journal, if that's buying a deck that's outside your range. I don't know. I just think all these things are important, and to be open minded through it all and to really not take ourselves too seriously. And last but not least, to not care what other people think about what you do with your decks or what you do with your journal or what type of books you read, or what kind of practices you're involved with or not involved with, or any of that. If it feels right to you, then it's right. And as long as it's not hurting someone or something, or you're being inappropriate in a certain way, if it makes you happy, if it's doing all those things I've said, then do it. And if you feel like sharing it, please share it. Because I think too many times there's so many wonderful people who have wonderful ideas, and they feel intimidated to come to spaces like this to share that because of the worry that people are going to judge them and attack them for not doing or saying something the right way. And I just want to say that on my channel, in this space here with you, that will never be a thing. So feel free to tell me all your ideas in my comments. Share your books, share your decks, share your practices, share your stickers. Tell me all the things that bring you joy. Like, I love hearing what you find interesting. I found all this interesting this month. So, what about you? I guess that turned into a little bit of a pep talk there at the end. I just appreciate you being here with me, and especially for all the support for my Kickstarter this February. It was amazing. I'm glad to be back making a video, and I can't wait for the next one. And I will catch you on that then. I will leave it at that. Thank you so much.